Good morning again, and it's still morning, just a little bit. All right, we're going to talk lesson two achievements under Egypt. These are always the fun chapters because you get to look at all the fun ancient inventions. Let's go ahead and share screen. All right. So we're going to look at these, and these are actually pillars in a temple. So it says, notice the size and scale. How do you think the ancient Egyptians achieved great feats of architecture without the technology we have today? And feats is just great examples. So how do you think they did it without things like cranes, without things like tractors, etc., and so forth? So it's always kind of a fun question to go, okay, educated guess. How do you think they did it? All right. And they're going to talk about writing. And again, we touched on it barely last lesson when we were talking about the scribes. So again, they use hieroglyphs, and it's a what they call a pictograph. So it's picture writing. And it says, list the hieroglyphs you recognize. How is writing with symbols different than using an alphabet? So is there anything you recognize in there? Then they also talk about the making of paper, one of the first forms of paper. And then there comes writing. If you're going to make paper, you need more than a CVS receipt. All right. How did writing make Egypt's complex civilization and technology possible? So, how did having a system of writing, even if it was complex, make all of this stuff possible? All right. Art and architecture. So, they talk about the whys of the pyramids. We're still kind of, here and there about the hows. But why? What was the purpose of it? So it says, why is the Great Pyramid of Giza called a wonder? Because it's considered one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. So it's kind of one of those, what do you think? Why does it deserve to be one of the seven wonders of the ancient world? All right, painting and sculpture. So you'll see things like this one is fairly realistic for its time. You'll notice he kind of has a little bit of a belly. A lot of ancient Egyptian art, it's interesting if you look at it because everybody kind of sort of looks the same. And we call that, they weren't super interested in realism, which is making things look realistic. It was more about who they were and what they did. All right. So, why do people still admire the pyramids and the art that the Egyptians created? All right, 3D model. You guys are going to get to play around with the pyramids. So, you can actually sit there and drag it around. And if you drag it this way far enough, you actually get kind of a interior, almost X-ray view of the pyramid. And it's kind of cool how it shapes out. So it's a fun thing to kind of play around with a little bit. All right, science and mathematics. So these guys had a lunar or a moon-based calendar, and it's almost what we do today. It's 354 days rather than 365. All right, so it says the seasons follow a solar or sun-based calendar, and that's 365 days. So they, in some ways, you could say they started off with a lunar calendar, and then they went to a calendar, as it says, to help farmers by the seasons. So 365 days would be more accurate. All right. So we've got mathematics. Mathematics is huge, guys. Without mathematics, and we mean complex mathematics, you can't build things like the pyramids, like their huge temples. And they're so precise that many of the pyramid blocks to this day are still so tightly packed you can't slip a credit card in between them or a piece of paper. And again, this was thousands of years ago. That's how complicated and complex their mathematic ability was. All right, science, technology, and medicine. So, glass, mortar, so being able to hold bricks together. Cosmetics is makeup. And again, engineering is the science and mathematics that go on to make things like buildings, pyramids, etc., so forth. All right. They had the most medical knowledge of their time, and part of that goes into is the making of the mummies. They learned anatomy really well because they were used to cutting people open and kind of sort of figuring out how things worked. All right, how do you think the advances in irrigation helped ancient Egyptian society to prosper? Now, again, irrigation, most of you guys are fairly familiar. That just means artificially bringing water to a place. Prosper just means to, how did they get wealthy? What were 3 achievements in science and mathematics? It's just a list. Super easy. All right, here's the mandatory lesson check. So, how did the Egyptians' use of hieroglyphics and papyrus, remember that was their paper, help advance their society? So it's a how question. Why were the Egyptians able to build the pyramids? Again, that's going back to those mathematics and engineering bits. So go back to that part. All right, if papyrus couldn't last a long time in the Egyptians' dry environment, how would have this affected our understanding of ancient Egyptian society? Okay, so if the papyrus is not going to last that long, because we don't actually have a whole lot of papyrus around today, we have a little bit. But as it says, it's not going to last a long time in the super dry environment. How might this kind of alter or mess with our understanding of them today? All right, why are the pyramids considered one of ancient Egyptians' greatest achievements? Okay. And I believe I had you do number 5 for this one, just in case. We'll go through it. All right. How did the ancient Egyptians' knowledge of astronomy help them farm? This goes back into that calendar part. Okay. Don't worry about 6. All right, kiddos. And we finished just before afternoon time. You guys have a great weekend. And again, if I don't talk to you, you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Take care now.